William Carter Buchanan was the youngest child born on April 30th, 1923, to Emma and Marion Buchanan. Billy's father was a model example to his son, where Marion led the Maiden First Baptist congregation in building a new church on the present-day site in downtown Maiden, and being ready to serve anyone when called, even if that meant not having the time to change out of his overalls. In 1933, at age 10, Billy lost his father to cancer. This left a hole not just in the family, but the Maiden community. As a testament to Marion Buchanan's life, all of the mills closed so that the town's residents could travel to the funeral, and the pastors of the different denominational churches in Maiden shared in the funeral service. In school, Billy was remembered as one who did not play sports and maintained a more scholarly approach to his conversations, which set him apart from the farm and mill kids at school. Billy was an outstanding academic student, earning top honors at graduation from Maiden High School in 1940. Billy entered Lees McRae College and earned his associate's degree in 1942, graduating as class valedictorian and setting a school record for the highest score earned on his final exam. His classmates Bruce Black and Rose Bowden would remember Billy as having a brilliant brain who was very, very smart. Billy decided to pursue his fascination with flying by joining the U.S. Army Air Force. Billy went through training in Biloxi, Missouri and Edwards Air Force Base in California, and by October 1943, Second Lieutenant Billy Buchanan had completed his B-24 flight training in Casper, Wyoming, as the navigator of the B-24 Liberator, 10 Aces and a Queen, with the 724th Bomb Squadron, 451st Bomb Group in the 15th Air Force. The 451st disembarked for war on Thanksgiving Day, 1943, and made it to North Africa in January 1944.
North Africa reminds me in other ways of California. The terrain is so varied, even within a small area. The impressions of the people which I've received are perhaps too quickly formed. Just as a humane touch, I might mention an incident which occurred yesterday. A French boy of about 10 years or less found that I understood French. He chatted about various subjects and asked me finally for a coin with which to buy a pencil. As I had already given away all the native coins and money which I had, I resorted to a hard luck story and told him that I was a poor boy. The clothes I wore made this story a little difficult. He finally seemed convinced, or at least I think he was, for he reached into his pocket, pulled out a handful of coins, and offered them to me. Of one thing I'm thoroughly convinced. After living for one day in the places one sees every day abroad, only a completely heartless person could return to the comparative splendor of even our own poorest and ill-treated and say with complacency, "Let us worry about our own problems, and let the foreigner worry about his." After the war, we who are fortunate should not be satisfied to leave and say we have done our part of the job. Our policy should be to consider our just share only as the initial contribution.
In February, Billy and his crew were moved to Italy, where the Allies were openly welcomed. As part of their welcome, the crews were invited to spend time in the local towns. Months prior, Lieutenant Rocco Changelo, a member of Billy's crew, had a dream of a farm in Italy. Rocco's father had immigrated to New York for work and died in an accident, leaving Rocco an inheritor to the family farm in Italy. Rocco was able to visit his extended family for the first time, and the farm which he described as appearing exactly as his dream. The immense pressure of the air war meant no cover from enemy ground fire and little support from fighter planes to cover the long-range bombers sent on missions all over the European continent. Half of the over 3,500 B-24s sent to service in the 15th Air Force would be lost in the war. On the morning of March 23, 1944, on about the 17th mission the 451st was to run, Billy's B-24 suffered an engine failure, causing a catastrophic fire on takeoff. Although the crew was able to salvo its bomb load away from populated areas, the resulting explosion caused by the unpredictable RDX payload took the plane with it, and none of the crews survived. Word of the loss would begin to reach the families in the following days.
I remember vividly the day the telegram came. Our family had moved to Baltimore, where Father worked as a welder on the battleships and the shipyards. Like many other families, we moved from Catawba County to support work in the war efforts. The most accessible communication was telegraph service. Messages could be sent from city to city, coast to coast, in just a matter of minutes. On receiving a message, the office would immediately send a courier who would hand-deliver the message to whom it was addressed. Family and spouses of servicemen lived in dread of hearing the doorbell ring one day and to open the door to see a young man holding a telegram. Our family would not be spared. That particular day when the doorbell rang, my brother and I sat at the top of the stairs while Mother and Daddy walked down to open the door. There he stood, the young man with a telegram in his hand. It was addressed to my mother, and I watched as she read it. Then I heard her moan as she crumpled into my daddy's outstretched arms. My mother's brother, my uncle Billy Buchanan, had been killed in action. I don't think I ever saw my mother cry like that again.
Besides his family, Billy left behind a fiancée in Newton and friends serving in the armed forces all over the globe. The loss of the 10 aces and a Queen crew caused a complete halt to the mission that day, but their loss was not to be in vain. 1 week later, a similar mechanical fire caused the deputy group leader's bomber to be forced into an emergency landing. Having witnessed the unpredictability of the payload salvo from the loss of Billy and his crew, the bomber fired off all of its flares to alert the control tower to clear a landing and successfully landed without incident, thus saving this crew and potentially the entire squadron. The efforts of the 15th Air Force would eventually cripple the industrial might of the Axis powers. Research into the life of Billy led to the connection of families of the fallen crew members, recovering pictures and stories, and in September 2019, the family of Staff Sergeant Andrew Carr became the first family of the crew to visit the Sicily-Rome American Cemetery in Italy. There, the crew rests side by side under the guard of cypress trees representing peace and eternal life. Second Lieutenant William Carter Buchanan wrote this poem before he entered service.
We're not pebbles on the beach of time, but each a world of its own, sublime. Not just a word on an endless scroll. There's a mighty volume for each man's soul. We're giving a play as we live each day. There's a role for each to do. Each day's a scene, each hour a line, each minute a word or two. We play not for gold that gleameth cold, or a niche in fame's bleak halls, not for a name in gleaming lights, or applause to rock the walls, but only for the critic's nod when the final curtain falls. Most scenes were happy, others were not, but each was vital in its own way to the plot. Now let's look at the act ahead, the many deeds to be done, trials, troubles, and battles, a war for truth to be won. With what we've learned in the past, by the help of the one above, we'll free the stage for man again, and brighten it with the light of love. When gone is the mist engulfing the present, we'll behold a scene peaceful and present.